Initiating podcast download. Prepare yourself. Put on your spandex. Lace up your boots. Wrap your wrists. Hide your razor blade. Head to gorilla position. Grease up your hair. Apply baby oil. Okay, apply more baby oil. Get into gimmick. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Have fun and be safe out there, brother. Welcome to I'm on Wrestling. Now your host, Gregory Iron.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Iron on Wrestling with Gregory Iron. I'm your host, Gregory Iron. This is episode 287. I'm not going to rhyme anything. I'm so sorry to disappoint you. No one's going to interrupt me. There's no Aaron Bauer. It's just me. Oos. Day one-ish. Still injured. So not in the usual studio. I'm here at home, recording in my sling. Good to see you. Hope you're happy to hear me. And we've got a great little show for you today. Our top story, and the main thing that we're going to focus on, is Kevin Owens' injury, but also some potentially great WrestleMania matches that were changed due to injury, or at least were rumored to potentially occur. We're going to talk about a little bit of the Charlotte and Tiffany stuff. And we're going to answer your questions from social media. Of course, Patreon will get first dibs, but then we'll answer as many questions as we can from Facebook and Instagram. Patreon.com/IronOnWrestling. The absolute best way to support the show. It puts a little bit of cash in my pocket, and it puts a buttload of extra content in your butt, because it fills a buttload. $3 gets you in the door. You will get a follow back on social media at any tier, by the way, so you can message me directly at any time about anything. $3 gets you all of the archived bonus content starting back in 2019, as well as bonus episodes. Early episodes come every week, so you get them at least a day early, unless my schedule doesn't permit as such, but you always get it early, sometimes extended. Videos, $5 tier, you get bonus videos. You'll get some behind-the-scenes footage. Right now, you're going to get to see Gregory Iron is Disarmed, those episodes which are coming every couple of weeks, documenting my recovery journey. We actually have a fun-filled episode that should be dropping by this weekend. I'm going to have RJ City as a special guest on the show, and I like to keep you up to date with the show, so you can see all that first. Extended videos from that. $9 is the preferred tier. You get to get involved in live chats with us once a month. We will be doing that before the end of this month. And if you go up to the $25 tier and up, you get something in the mail every quarter. So we'll be sending something out again in June. So make sure you get to be a part of that Patreon tier if you'd like some free packages from moi. And if you haven't subscribed already on YouTube, check that out. We're uploading podcasts there, extra content there, rare wrestling content. Subscribe wherever you download podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, wherever that is, your preferred podcasting platform. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave a comment. Creates visibility for the podcast, and we thank you so very much. Where am I at in my recovery, you ask? Well, I'm just getting used to everything. It's been a couple weeks now, and it's weird how you get used to barely using an arm at all. I'm slowly starting to pick things up with my feet. Not much, but enough. Basically, the main idea is I'm in the sling, but really the majority of my limited ability comes in not lifting my arm up or bilateral, because part of the incision goes under my armpit. So, again, this sling isn't coming off till May 6th. If you're not subscribed to Patreon, if you don't want to support that way, I do have t-shirts. There is a GoFundMe set up by Josh Excellent and a plethora of other Patreon subscribers, which I do appreciate very much. It's helping me support while I'm down and out, as far as, living financially, paying my bills, eating food, etc., etc. But, I'm optimistic. I'm on chapter 3 of my book. I'm about to wrap that up shortly. Really confident in everything I'm writing. Apparently, according to ChatGPT, asking them based on how many pages I've written, it seems like I've put in roughly 30 pages of work. I don't know how many hours that goes into, but I think it's shaking out to be something special that will appeal to people outside of professional wrestling. And I will be putting some little samples of the writing over on Patreon. So, if this is something you guys are interested in, please sign up to the Patreon. Stuff you can read, stuff that I will read to you. It's getting pretty emotional, so that's kind of where I'm at in my life. Other than that, nothing really new going on for me. I ate pretzel pizza twice last week, so that tells you where I am at in my recovery. I have my good days and my bad days, but I'm managing to get at least 10,000 steps in, just so I feel like I'm doing something. I wish I was doing something with Emily, but I'm not. I'm doing something with you. I'm recording this podcast. So if you are over on Patreon, you got some bonus podcasts this past week. But right off the rip, I just want to mention again real quick, as I talked about on the bonus podcast, this Charlotte and Tiffany stuff. Super awkward, right? Super intriguing in some aspects. And I'm just wondering, how are you feeling about the Charlotte-Tiffany feud? Are you invested in it? But more importantly, how do you feel about Charlotte Flair? Because there's just something about her that the audience, she's got that X-Pac heat. And I can't think of anybody in recent times that is as athletically gifted as Charlotte when it comes to in-ring work, that seems to be so universally hated. And I can't quite place my finger on what it is, why it is, but I can sense something is there. And maybe someone could spell it out for me. Why don't you like Charlotte Flair? Why doesn't the general audience like Charlotte Flair? I'd love to know. Let us know on social media at Iron on Wrestling, because I need some answers. I need something to make sense. I want to create logic out of this somewhat illogical feeling that I seem to be getting from the audience. Let's talk about Kevin Owens' announcement last Friday on SmackDown. He came to the ring and he essentially said that since about January, he's been battling some neck issues, and wasn't really sure how that was going to shake out for him. Got some evaluations, and he's being informed that he needed neck surgery. Now, he has not wrestled since the Elimination Chamber, which was March 1st, and he only had, according to Cage Match, 2 matches in January. One, of course, was a match with Cody Rhodes, and then one was a TV match with Rey Mysterio. And he claims that the injury did not happen in the match that you would think it was in, so it leads me to believe that it would be in the regular match with Rey Mysterio, which, sometimes, usually, being a wrestler myself, that is... that's where the injuries happen, right? It's in a match that you would not expect. It's usually in a spot that you would not expect it to. And this is very unfortunate. On a podcast that was recorded earlier in the day before SmackDown but dropped the next day, which would have been Saturday, Kevin mentioned that he didn't know the exact timetable, but based on other neck injuries, he's thinking it's probably going to be somewhere 6 to 12 months that he will be out. But also, he didn't say this. There's a chance that, depending on the severity of it, Kevin Owens may never wrestle again. And, his promo on SmackDown was very real, very genuine. 25 years, always gave it his all. And it caught up to him. And for a lot of us that are wrestlers, in some way, perhaps maybe it's not career ending, but the bumps and the bruises catch up with you. Look at the position I'm in right now. I had the privilege to talk to a good friend of mine, Pepper Parks, the Blade of AEW today. And, he's been on the show for a little bit too. And having a conversation with him about what we've been doing to keep our minds at ease, remembering that there is more to life than wrestling, and just, sharing a conversation with someone like that, that being Pepper Parks in this regard, where, it's hard to find genuine people in wrestling, and it's nice to be able to talk with someone that is on that same search, which, we all find that at different times, whether it be in wrestling or in life, where we have to come to terms with the way things are, the way they could be. We have to be at peace with that. And when I think about Kevin Owens, I knew him when he was Kevin Steen. Did a lot of shows with Kevin over the years throughout the Midwest. Shows in upstate New York, Cleveland, I think a variety of other places. Maybe there was a couple AAW shows in Chicago back in the day. I wouldn't say we were tight by any means, but we exchanged conversations in the locker room. I once had to deliver some shirts for him. I picked some shirts that were printed for him, delivered it to him in upstate New York because it would have been out of the way for him. I believe they were Johnny Gargano and Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen shirts, and it was his half of the shirts. And always a hard worker, always a good guy. And I think with his more unconventional look, the tank top, the shorts, being a little bit heavier set, I don't know if Kevin was ever expected to do the things that he did at the heights for which he did within WWE. And if it is all said and done for him, I think there's a lot of things that Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens can be proud of. First of all, I think when you grow very close to another wrestler, you travel a lot with another wrestler or a couple of guys, it becomes sort of your dream to be able to work with that person in an extensive program on a large scale where people can see it. One of my dreams as a wrestler, which I think at this point probably won't ever happen, but I did so many battles with Johnny Gargano in my early years, and he's still today my closest friend and confidant when it comes to wrestling and life. He's like a brother to me. You could give me the option of like a job writing with WWE or just having one really good match with Johnny on WWE. And I probably would pick the one good match with Johnny because, you can't put a price on life experiences, right? And it would be nice to share in that with my friend. And Kevin Owens, for 25 years, has got to not only do it when he was probably not making much money, but got to do it while he's making a lot of money. He got to travel with and have programs with, multiple programs with Sami Zayn, El Generico, someone that he's known since his earliest days in wrestling. Their matches and feud in Ring of Honor, legendary. He got to wrestle Sami one-on-one at WrestleMania, that being WrestleMania 37. He got to team with Sami Zayn and win the tag team titles in the main event of WrestleMania, the first tag team main event to close WrestleMania since WrestleMania 1. Kevin got to do that. He wrestled Sami Zayn for the NXT Championship by defeating Sami Zayn. I believe, what was it? Was it his first match or one of his very first matches in NXT? February of 2015. His debut on the main roster. He defeated arguably one of the best of all time, John Cena, Elimination Chamber, May 31st, 2015. That's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that was just like a network special. That wasn't even a pay-per-view, right? You can only watch that on the network. I think it was the last-minute decision to make that event. They called up Kevin. He did the thing with Cena. He had quite a rivalry with John Cena. One of his best matches that I enjoyed that I think goes under the radar is when they did that Beast in the East show in 2015 where he wrestled Finn Balor defending the NXT Championship. That was a Japan show. If you've never watched that match, go back and find it. I think it might be on Peacock. I'm not sure, but it was one of those. It was also one of those shows where I don't think Vince was in Michael Cole's ear at that point. So people were like, hey, wait, Michael Cole did really good commentary on this show. And I mean, I don't know if you should have been totally shocked by it. Like Cole had become somewhat of a Vince mouthpiece. Well, I mean, if it's boss, what choice did he have? But I've said it a bunch of times before, and I'll say it again. I always enjoyed Michael Cole in his early days, especially when he was with Taz. So for him to be a great commentator and not be shilling WWE Network every 5 seconds during that Beast in the East show, I was not too terribly shocked by that. It was not an impossible thing. I'm sure one of the career highlights for Kevin Owens was when he won the Universal Championship with the help of Triple H in 2016. It was vacant. He beat Seth Rollins for that belt. I don't know exactly if this is true or not, but Kevin Owens might have the most WWE Championship matches in Royal Rumble history. He wrestled Roman Reigns, I think, like 3 times at the Royal Rumble, unsuccessful each time. He wrestled in a handicap match, him and Sami Zayn versus AJ Styles in a championship match at the Royal Rumble. Of course, he just wrestled Cody for the WWE Championship in a ladder match this past Rumble. Jericho versus Owens at WrestleMania 33 was a great match, and considering the magnitude of that story at the time, there were talks that was going to main event the show and be for the championship. It had not been for Goldberg coming back and beating Kevin for the Universal Championship. I really wish that would have actually happened because it was probably the last great run for Jericho, in my opinion. If you're not talking about, when he showed up in Japan and did a little thing with Kenny Omega or whatever. I really haven't been a fan too much of Jericho's AEW work, if I'm being transparent. But nonetheless, him and Kevin Owens in the Festival of Friendship, 2017 we're talking here. There were not, for me, someone that was in the business and had gotten used to the cookie cutter stories of WWE. There were not a lot of segments in that time period of the show that stood out. The Festival of Friendship were one of the best segments that the WWE's ever done, and they pulled it off in a time period where a lot of the stuff was forgettable. Having Jericho read the list of KO and saying, wait, why is my name on here? And then Kevin Owens beating his ass. It's something I'll never forget. It was good stuff. He had a brutal Falls Count Anywhere Hell in a Cell match with Shane McMahon in 2017. They had didn't he have a steel cage match with Braun Strowman where he threw him off of the cage? Or am I making that up? That's a real thing that happened, right? When did that happen? I don't know offhand. One of the matches that I still would not go back and watch because it's the pandemic era, but probably, one of the only worthy matches of watching during the pandemic, you could argue, is Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens, WrestleMania 36. That was a very enjoyable match. They did a spot where, what was it? I think Kevin Owens got dropped off of the WrestleMania sign, or it was a leap from the sign, I believe it was. Trying to think, what else did we have with Kevin Owens that comes to mind? Listen, all of his social media stuff was always hilarious up until just recently when he's talking about doing an autograph signing, and he said something to the effect of, come out and see me this week, where You all say the same thing to me, and I try to react in different ways, which I would assume he means like, oh, I'm so sorry about your neck injury. I'm sorry you're missing time. I'm sorry you have to step away from wrestling. I can appreciate dry humor like that. I always appreciated that out of Kevin when I did shows with him, and it was always fun stuff to watch on social media and on TV. Just he's got a good sense of humor and comedic timing, and I can appreciate that. He did the pile driver to Cody Rhodes, Saturday night's main event, the return of the show this past August. He also, of course, delivered the pile driver to Randy Orton, sort of ushered in a time where we could take the pile driver more seriously in 2024 and 2025. So I think that in itself says something. And, I'm sure there's a plethora of other things we can mention about KO, but I think the biggest accomplishment of all that I think Kevin should be proud of, growing up a fan of his, he had a surprise main event, WrestleMania 38, Texas, scheduled to be the KO show, and it turns into a no-holds-barred match. Kevin Owens with special guest Stone Cold Steve Austin, who ends up being his special opponent for Stone Cold's final match as of record date, but also his first match since his last match with The Rock 19 years later. We always had these rumors. Will Stone Cold Steve Austin come back for a match with, CM Punk? Will he come back for a match with Brock Lesnar? This is the WrestleMania that Austin will come back for this match with so-and-so. None of it ever happened. Of all people, and this isn't anything disparaging towards Kevin, but again, considering that he's not the typical person you would envision someone like Vince McMahon getting behind, would you have guessed, even the year prior, in 2021, but go back to when Kevin started his career, chubby guy in a singlet, working the indies. Could you imagine that you say, you know what, 25 years from now, you are one day going to main event WrestleMania against arguably the biggest draw, the biggest name in the history of wrestling. And I don't think you say yes to that. Perhaps maybe the only person that believed that was Kevin himself. And they had a hell of a match. Stone Cold was bumping around like a mother for Stone Cold. Stunner versus Stunner. I also enjoyed the shirt that they came out with that. Of course, that was KO Mania 6. So they copied and pasted and duct taped Stone Cold and Kevin to the iconic WrestleMania 6 poster, all over top Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. And I will never forget the fact that in the time we were living in, when pay-per-view was basically a dead model, where you could watch it on the WWE Network. It might have been Peacock at that point, I'm not sure. But whatever the case is, you didn't have to, shell out $60 to watch WrestleMania. So they didn't have to officially announce the match, but you figured it was probably going to happen. To hear the pop from the crowd, the buzz, and then the pop when the bell actually rings, signifying that we're going to get Austin's first match in nearly 20 years against Kevin Owens, is something I'll never forget. And I can only imagine how Kevin felt in that moment, standing across the ring from Steve. So, listen, if it's all said and done for Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, he had a hell of a run. And I think that going forward, there is a lot that Kevin can do to contribute if he wishes to do so. Training at the Performance Center, producing, it's not the end of the road for Kevin. And I wish him the best. I hope that he can one day return if that's something that he wants to do. But if not, he had a hell of a run. And listen, his last match was with his best friend. Even if he didn't expect it to be, I don't think you can go out in a better way than that to share the ring with your friend. So, hope you have a good, speedy recovery, Kevin. And, listen, hey, we've only just got started here on the show. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the WrestleMania matches that didn't happen because of injuries. And we're also going to answer your questions, most of them, social media. Depends on what time we have permitted when we come back on Iron on Wrestling. Hey, how's your health and wellness journey? Good, great, grand? Perhaps it is. But can it be a little bit better? Wait. You're not on a fitness journey at all? Oh, no. We got to stop making excuses, and we got to find a way to get you on the right path. And I think that way is TNT-health.com. Why do I think it's the way? Well, because TNT-health.com has helped me on the journey that I've already been on. And I got to be honest, they got everything. They got fat burners, they got muscle building supplements, they got protein, they got pre-workout, they got pro hormones, stuff for healthy living like amino acids, vitamins, minerals, all that good stuff. I tend to lead when I can lift. I tend to lead myself into using things like the glutamine for post-workout, the creatine for pre-workout. Sometimes if I'm needing to be a little caffeinated, I use their Zoom caffeinated pre-workout. I always use their vanilla organic protein powder, which I can mix in with anything. I could throw in a banana, maybe a couple Oreo cookies, and I'm still meeting my macros. And by the way, are you having a hard time tracking your own macros? Well, never fear, because Mike and the good folks at TNT Health are going to help you every step of the way. They're going to help you with your goals, your macros, all the nutrition that you're hoping to hit. They're going to hold your hand through the whole process. And usually most companies would pay you, they wouldn't pay you, they would charge you extra for things like that. If you go to GNC and Vitamin Shop, they're going to try to sell you things you don't need. Mike and the folks at TNT-health.com are going to get you the things you want to get you to where you need to go. So, with that being said, go to TNT-health.com. It's free to look, but if you buy anything, you could save 10% by using our promo code IRONON. That's IRONON, IRONON. Save 10% on anything and everything you buy. So, stop waiting. Start today, because TNT-health.com, it's about your health today, not tomorrow. AI is terrifying. Have you seen all the art people are posting on the internet with AI? Listen, we even did it on the Iron on Wrestling account, okay? We're guilty. I used ChatGPT to recreate some historically bad pro wrestling moments. However, if I were making a design, I would not use AI, because there are hardworking individuals out there that use their talent to create art for you, and they make a living off it. So why would we take jobs away from these people with AI? If you needed artwork done, I would look at you and I would say, hey, I have a suggestion for you. See what I did there? I think you should contact Juan Ortiz of the Dead Designs, because Of the Dead Designs has been in the business of making artwork for plethora of people, including many prominent figures in the wrestling business and myself. 20 years, okay? 20 whole years, and his stuff has been in Hot Topic and in video games and on action figures. If you need something for yourself, if you need something for a gift for a friend or a loved one, if you need a logo for your big or small business, Juan Ortiz can make that happen. And despite the fact that he makes art for millionaires and companies with billions of dollars, it's not going to cost you that much to get some artwork from Juan Ortiz of the Dead Designs. I don't think he minds me saying, but right now, according to one of his most recent posts, he's charging only $25 an hour for what he's doing. And guess what? If you've never gotten a design from Juan Ortiz and you're listening to this show, if you contact him, he'll knock off $20 off your first design, if and only if you mention Iron on Wrestling. So I think that's something you should probably do. So do yourself a favor. Do something that no robot will do for you. Message Juan Ortiz of the Dead Designs. Contact an actual human who will respond to your message and create the artwork for which you would like created. Why? Because Juan Ortiz and Of the Dead Designs is going to bring your art to life. Contact them right now at Of the Dead Designs on Instagram, facebook.com/ofthedeaddesigns, or go to the website ofthedead.weebly.com, because like I said, Juan Ortiz and Of the Dead Designs. They're bringing artwork to life. And we are back, and, with Kevin Owens' injury, leaves Randy Orton without anything to do at the show of shows, right? Now, there are rumors going around as to what could be the thing that happens. And it seems as though perhaps maybe the most logical thing would be re-debuting Aleister Black to wrestle Randy Orton, which I think could be very intriguing. I think it could be a really great WrestleMania match. And I feel like if that happens, well, I feel like Aleister Black needs to win, right? I mean, he needs some momentum coming back into the company. And I think he could be one of those cool, dark characters that we never got the chance to see him in the way that we could have under the Vince McMahon regime, right? Like, I'm talking Undertaker, Bray Wyatt. There's something about Aleister Black, about, whatever you want to call him. Tommy End. What was his name just in AEW? Malachi Black. There's something about him that there's a realistic, scary factor about him. So, I think there could be something potentially good with Randy Orton, both at WrestleMania and maybe going forward. But if that doesn't happen, maybe they call up someone from NXT. I don't know what the deal could be. But whatever the case is, over the years there have been situations where injuries have changed matches at WrestleMania. And, thinking about WrestleMania's past, I was thinking about, what matches could we have had that did not happen because of injuries? And so the first thing that came to my mind, of course, with my fandom was thinking about, which you could argue whether this was a actual injury or not, but Shawn Michaels' knee costing him the opportunity to wrestle Bret Hart in a rematch at WrestleMania 13. So, of course, WrestleMania 12, we have the Iron Man match, which was an instant classic between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. In overtime, Shawn Michaels wins the WWF Championship for the first time. Next year, we're building towards a rematch between the two individuals. Obviously, Bret Hart took off the spring and most of the summer of 1996, and he does a program with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Shawn ends up getting into a feud with Sid around that time, loses the championship to Sid, regains it at the Rumble, and we're thinking all roads lead to the rematch from last year's WrestleMania, but alas, Michaels ends up relinquishing the title due to a supposed knee injury. This would occur on, I believe, Thursday, Raw Thursday, in the infamous I've Lost My Smile promo. Some people would say that HBK was deliberately using an injury to try to get out of this match with Bret. Perhaps he did not want to drop the championship to Bret. This would not be the first time that Shawn got out of dropping a title without actually being defeated for it. If you recall, him and Diesel vacated the tag titles in 1994 when they had their split. Shawn also vacated the IC belt to Shane Douglas, or Dean Douglas as he was known at the time, in 1995. And then, of course, the I Lost My Smile promo in 1997. This, of course, changed plans for Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. As we know, they end up doing the Final Four match at In Your House in February, where Bret wins the championship, but then he ends up losing that the next night to Sid, and so then we end up getting Sid and The Undertaker in the main event of WrestleMania 13. And then, of course, we have a very much, I think it's a forgotten match, really, between Bret and Steve Austin that no one really ever talks about anymore. Oh, wait, no, they do, because it's being inducted in the Hall of Fame, and it might be the greatest match in the history of WWF. If not the greatest match in the history of the WWF, then perhaps the most important match, when you consider everything that happened following that match and the things that we got out of that match. Maybe, and please, at me with more iconic photos or images from wrestling's history. I'm sure there's a few, but near the top of the list has to be Stone Cold, his face, while in the sharpshooter, blood pouring down his face, running onto his teeth. It doesn't get much better than that. Okay, I mean, I get chills down my spine just talking about it. That was a moment, and we don't get that if Shawn doesn't get a real or fake knee injury. So I want to just throw that out there. At WrestleMania 22, we almost got. Okay, you ready for this one? Randy Orton versus Batista, not at WrestleMania 30. We were going to get that, but Daniel Bryan was the man that people wanted to see in the match, so it became a three-way. We almost got it at WrestleMania 22. Batista became the heavyweight champion at WrestleMania 21 when he beat Triple H. He actually remained the champion until January, which is one of the longer title reigns up to that point, because, you know, that's when the title was still getting flip-flopped around. So they're trying to reestablish longer title reigns than they had in years past. And it was because of a tricep injury that Batista had to vacate the championship, which led to a battle royal where Kurt Angle won the championship, and then they ended up doing a three-way. But the original plans were supposed to be former Evolution partners, Batista and Randy Orton. But instead we get Randy Orton, Kurt Angle, and Rey Mysterio. So, and I think there was more emotion behind the Rey win with the story of Eddie and everything. And I think you could argue that you could have done some sort of Eddie thing with the Batista story, considering that Eddie's last major feud was with Batista. Batista and Eddie did seem to have quite the bond. And but I think with, you know, the emotional investment and the long-time friendship of Rey and Eddie probably worked out for the best, right? When you think about other WrestleMania matches where injury plagued some of the matches from actually occurring, I think of this. How about two Jason Jordan matches? One being Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins. If you recall, they actually made Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins a tag team for a period of time. They even won the tag team championships together. And then, of course, and, you know, they were building Jason Jordan to be the bad guy in the situation. But, you know, Jason Jordan ended up getting a neck injury. I'm pretty sure it was a neck injury. So he had to retire. And instead of doing the match with Seth, we ended up getting the Finn Balor, Miz, Seth Rollins triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship, which I think was a pretty great match, all things considered. But we were also supposed to get Jason Jordan versus Kurt Angle. Of course, they revealed that Kurt Angle had a son. It was Jason Jordan. It was a rib on Kurt because in real life he had a tendency to enjoy spending time with African American women. So, of course, his son ends up being African American. And, yeah, we did not get that match, which would have been probably Kurt Angle's final match. But it ends up being against Baron Corbin instead. A lot of these scenarios end up being like a better case scenario than what we got. But in this case, I don't think Baron Corbin versus Kurt Angle is really what we want. And it's not Baron's fault. Baron's even gone on record to say that he wishes the follow-up to that could have been better because, you know, they let him defeat such a legend like Kurt Angle. So, yeah, that's that. Lita versus Trish Stratus was supposed to be a WrestleMania match. It was supposed to happen at WrestleMania 21. But Lita ended up tearing her ACL. And when that happened, plans changed. And so instead, we got at WrestleMania 21, Christy Hemme versus Trish Stratus. And if you watch and you don't know the backstory, you'll see that Lita accompanies Christy Hemme to the ring. And you're like, well, why didn't they do Lita versus Trish? Well, that's why that didn't happen. Rock versus Brock Lesnar, you may remember, was rumored to be a thing to happen at WrestleMania 30. Yes, that was a real thing. The plan was the night after WrestleMania 29 was for Brock to attack The Rock following his loss to John Cena, but he actually tore like his abdomen muscle, I believe, in that match, or one of his abdomen tendons, and so that never happened. And because of the tear, and probably the reason why we have not really seen Rock wrestle until just this past WrestleMania, at the time he was going to film the movie Hercules, and his injury delayed the filming of that motion picture. And so that sort of became a liability for, these Hollywood blockbusters that are putting millions and millions of dollars into the film and into the actor themselves, and for him to go and wrestle, taking a big chance there. Could potentially get hurt, and The Rock did. And so because of that injury, we never got the Rock and Brock at WrestleMania 30. In fact, The Rock actually tweeted at one point in 2013 that he said, between Vince, Brock, and myself, our WrestleMania 30 plan was Rock versus Brock. No plans now for 30, but possibly 31. So that's something he responded, I believe, to a fan. So just imagine if if Rock doesn't get hurt, that means Brock does not wrestle Taker, which means, in theory, the Undertaker streak could have remained an undefeated one, or it ends at Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33. But it's quite the what-if scenario, because The Rock being injured led to one of those rare, surreal moments in wrestling over the past, 40 years that I've been watching. So, it ranks right up there with Cena's recent heel turn and Hulk Hogan at the Bash at the Beach. And so, Undertaker losing a pretend match to Brock Lesnar was a very incredibly surreal moment. And that happens only because The Rock got hurt. You son of a bitch. Why, Rock? Why? Triple H and John Cena was also a match that comes to mind, which I think it might have been for the best we didn't get that rematch. That was supposed to happen at WrestleMania 23. Of course, we got Triple H and John Cena at WrestleMania 22, which was a fine match. It was okay. At the time, this is when they're really starting to dislike Cena. This is a year removed from his first championship reign. So this gives you an idea of how the crowds were already getting sick of John Cena even then, 20 years ago. They were cheering for Triple H, one of the most hated heels of the time. And, there was a feeling that people wanted Triple H to win. Of course, they teased the DX suck at chops in both his match and Shawn Michaels' match with Vince McMahon. Blah, blah, blah. This leads to the reunion of D-Generation X. The following year, WrestleMania 23, they're going to do the rematch, but in January, at the New Year's Revolution pay-per-view, in a tag match, Triple H, Shawn Michaels versus Rated RKO, Triple H tears his other quad. Yes, we all talk about the quad tear of 2001, but rarely do we talk about the quad tear of 2007, which put him out of action, which also led to him missing out on WrestleMania, which then put Shawn Michaels in the place of Triple H. And I think we got the better WrestleMania match out of the deal, because I'm sure Triple H and John Cena would have been fine, but Shawn Michaels and John Cena, I think that's one of the John Cena matches that actually gets slept on. It's a classic. I've mentioned it on the podcast several times. I was there in attendance for it, and it might be my favorite John Cena match at WrestleMania. And I'm not just being biased because I was there. So those are the matches that could have been had it not been for injury. Are there other WrestleMania matches that could have been had someone not got hurt? Are there other matches in general that come to mind that weren't at WrestleMania that you wish would have happened had it not been for injury? Let me know in the comments below on Patreon, on social media, at me. Let me know what you're thinking. And with that being said, I just want to remind you, we are going to do a bonus podcast over on Patreon. We're going to have the full interview that I'm going to do with RJ City that I'm doing for the YouTube show Gregory Iron is Disarmed. That full thing is going to be on Patreon probably by the time you're listening to this on Tuesday night or Wednesday for free on iTunes, wherever you download podcasts. So definitely want to subscribe to the Patreon and be on the lookout for my review of this past Monday's Raw, which will be on Patreon, some other WWE news and notes that perhaps we don't talk about here, some AEW stuff. And we're going to preview the WrestleMania card as it stands less than 2 weeks away. So patreon.com/IronOnWrestling. But now that we've done all that, perhaps maybe we should answer your questions from social media. As many as we can get to here. And maybe we'll save some for next week or do some on the next episode. The bonus episode. Maybe you got to subscribe to hear some of your questions answered. So here we go. Your questions, starting with Patreon. All right, first comes from Josh Excellent over on patreon.com. Josh says, kiss, marry, ghost, Tori, Kane's ex-girlfriend, Tori Wilson, and Tori Scott from the final season of Saved by the Bell. Quite the question. But I feel like I have a very easy response. I'm going to kiss Tori Scott from Saved by the Bell. She's a very forgettable character, but I will kiss her. I'm going to marry Tori Wilson because I get to spend the rest of my life with one of the most beautiful women of all time and a crush of mine as a child. And you know what? I'm going to ghost Tori because she treated Kane very, very poorly, okay? Sure. Was Kane a burn victim when they were dating? Yes. But, Tori, she cheated on him for X-Pac. Who would have thought that a woman gets put on the line in a stipulation that she has to spend her holiday with the victor, and she had to spend it with X-Pac, and then she ends up falling for him and then cheating on her boyfriend. Very disrespectful, and I just don't want that kind of drama in my life. So that's the easy answer there. So thank you for your question, Josh. Aaron Bauer says, who would you apartment wrestle once you're healed up? I don't have an answer for that. I feel like Aaron is wanting me to say him. He does not live in an apartment, nor would I want to wrestle him. And I think at this point, we both have too many injuries and muscle tears to be apartment wrestling each other. Josh Excellence does also ask, though, why do you think that Ricky Steamboat wasn't a bigger star in WWE? And do you think it's because he didn't continue to go by the name Dick Blood? I think, well, you always hear that Vince kind of soured on Ricky once he wanted to, I know, God forbid, take time away from wrestling to spend time at home with his newborn son in 1987 following his classic with Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3. But you know what? Also, I just feel like while Ricky had a great body, he wasn't that big, oversized type that Vince was really a fan of at the time. I really think that, considering the momentum he had after him and Ric Flair in 1989, bringing Ricky back in, what was it, the end of 1990, 1991? I think it was 1991, later in 1991. Him doing the fire-breathing gimmick, as a kid, I thought that was awesome, and the costume was great. I really thought there was some meat on the bones with that. Honestly, if Steamboat would have hung around, I don't think I could have seen him turning heel, but man, we could have had some great matches with, like, Ricky Steamboat and Bret Hart for the WWF Championship in 1992, right? Even if it was a one-off, that could have been a cool thing. Imagine if you decided to turn Ricky Steamboat heel, which I don't know what that would have looked like, but imagine a heel Ricky Steamboat in 1992 feuding with Randy Savage. Ricky Steamboat wrestling Ric Flair in the WWF in 1992. What could have been? But, apparently Steamboat was told, there was no main event opportunities going to open up for him, and that's why he ended up leaving the company. So it's just very unfortunate. Eric from Patreon with a plethora of dumb questions. Let's see what the least dumbest of them all is. What are your favorite KO moments? Do you even remember them? Okay, so not KO, but being knocked out. I do remember vaguely being knocked out when I got a powerbomb from Eric Ryan behind Gargano's catering, feeling like I was in a dream, being put into an ambulance, but I was actually being put into an ambulance. And I remember thinking one of the individuals working the ambulance looked like my dad, and consciously thinking if I should ask him if he is my dad. So I guess that would be my favorite KO moment that I remember. He also asked, what are your opinions on the Death Rider story saving AEW, doubling the ratings since it started? So supposedly, Tony Khan has no proof to back this up, but he's claiming that 500,000 people roughly a week are watching AEW on Max, which means there's about 500-ish thousand people watching AEW on TBS, which means that there's over 1 million people watching AEW every week, which I can't imagine that's a real thing. And the Death Rider story has been the opposite of good. And, people were asking me on, Monday, did you watch the AEW pay-per-view last night? No, I didn't. And I'm actively avoiding trying to watch these pay-per-views at this point because I'm feeling like I did at the end of the 2010s on the network where WWE was running their pay-per-views 5 hours long. They're still doing that during the pandemic, I think, 2020. They were purposely running long pay-per-views to have longer run times on Peacock, I believe was the case. And it's just a lot. It's draining. I remember I would start to fall asleep during the main event of the WWE shows. It's the same thing with AEW. And there's not enough story for me to sink my teeth into, so it's hard to invest. A lot of the matches look the same to me. Everybody's got their opinion. I don't think that they've actually doubled their ratings. I don't know what it looks like as far as the numbers streaming on Max, but I can't imagine they're 500,000 a week. That seems like a lot. So, yeah. Dean Chard says Sabrina Carpenter or Jenny Ortega. It's a tough call. Jenna Ortega is the new Scream Queen and a very attractive young lady. Sabrina Carpenter, also very attractive young lady, good musician. Oh boy, gun to my head. Let's think. Who am I going to have the better, more fulfilling long-term relationship with? I feel like I probably would have more in common with Jenna, so I'm going to go Jenna. Though, both are very tempting as far as two beautiful individuals. So, yeah, I'm going to go Jenna Ortega on this one. Who else from Patreon submitted questions? Becky Lynch never wrestles another match again. Does work up until now make her worthy of a Hall of Fame? Also, same question, but Pete Gass. I think, yeah, Becky was the first, one of three of the first women to main event WrestleMania. So I think that in itself puts her in the top echelon of greats. Definitely Hall of Fame worthy. I think, that iconic shot, again, we talked earlier. Coincidentally, these both involve blood. Becky Lynch's face after being punched by Nia Jax, arms extended, SmackDown shirt, in the crowd, smiling, blood running down her nose. That's an iconic shot. And what a fucking badass, right? So, yeah, I think just being a main eventer at WrestleMania alone, I think puts you in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, and yes, before Eric submits his question next week, I think that also means Lawrence Taylor should also go into the Hall of Fame. Because, yes, he was also a WrestleMania main eventer. So there. Are you happy? Pete Gass, I think he's got some great stories from his book. But I don't know if he's a Hall of Fame candidate. But anything could happen in the World Wrestling Federation. What else do we have from Patreon? Juan Ortiz, who wins a Royal Rumble-style match if every president of the United States and all the presidents are in their prime? I mean, you got to go Abraham Lincoln, right? Abraham Lincoln is the only person, to my knowledge, that had wrestling experience, right? However, also, not related at all, I've been meaning to buy it on Prime, which I don't usually buy documentaries. There is a documentary with a hilarious name, but I think a great story about Abraham Lincoln, one that is not often talked about, and it's called Lover of Men, The Untold History of Abraham Lincoln. It's about maybe perhaps Abraham Lincoln being a member of the LGBTQ community and exploring details behind that. But I just, it's funny, not that he potentially could have been a gay man, because who cares if he was, but the idea that they thought, we want to explore this subject with Abraham Lincoln. What do we call the film? Oh, I know. Lover of Men. It's just, interesting. What else do we have here? Anthony Rebus over on Patreon. Favorite wrestling-themed movie? That's tough. Ready to Rumble was a favorite growing up. I would say No Holds Barred is pretty wrestling themed, even though you have the weird shaped ring at the end. It's still a wrestling movie. What was there's one that gets slept on. Henry Winkler, The One, I believe it's called The One, from like the 70s, is a classic. The Wrestler is great, but I think you can name a bunch of wrestling associated films. I think Ready to Rumble is the easy choice. It's funny. David Arquette's the man. I consider him a friend. And, I think Ready to Rumble was something I watched too much as a kid. It does still... you never really get clarity whether or not the guys actually believe wrestling is fake or not, but needless to say, it is a one-of-a-kind film. Of all the films I've seen, Ready to Rumble is definitely one of them. Kyle Brandt says Magic the Gathering or Pokemon. I don't really like either, but I will go with Pokemon because I have a little bit more knowledge of Pokemon, and it is one of the more banger songs of all time as far as the theme song goes. Shantavia Jones says, how's the Morning Wood been treating you? Not good. Again, I'm still injured. I can't really do anything about said wood. So this might be TMI, but this is the longest I've been celibate. Okay? So I'm just going to throw that out there, and it is it's hard times, both literally and mentally. Steve McGinnis says, after the pay-per-view last night, Swerve shouted, fuck you, Booker T, to the crowd. After a main event, who would you shout that to, and why would it be Hulk Hogan? I don't know if it would be Hulk Hogan, though Hulk Hogan probably does deserve a fuck Hulk Hogan chant. I mean, the easy answer for me would probably fuck Michael Tarver, and no one would know who I'm talking about because his career has been pretty much irrelevant since his time as a member of the Nexus. And if you know the story, basically gave me a concussion with brain bleeding back in 2007 and never apologized for it. Following his concussion, he ended up getting a WWE contract, and he's in years past, he's not only talked shit about me online, about how I don't know what it's like to get a concussion and I didn't really almost die, but he's written rap songs about me that feature me and also him trying to diss John Cena. So I'm in good company. I would go fuck Michael Tarver because he's an actual piece of shit and he's still clinging on to relevancy. I see him pop up on social media from time to time, and he's still out there putting out terrible raps and pretending that he loves Jesus, so you think that he's a good person. Because we all know that if you say that you love Jesus or say God bless, then that means you're great, right? That you can't do any other thing to be a good person. That's the only way you do it. Usually, as it turns out, people that go around and do that while being shitty people are usually the worst people and are just using religion and Jesus as a crutch. Did I just go into a rambling there? I feel like I did. Let's see. James Caputo says, first off, you got this, dude. I know the surgery and pain is a huge inconvenience, but look at everything you have overcome thus far. I appreciate you saying that, James. His question, if you could work with any fellow wrestler, past or present, who would it be? And then I said, could you be more specific? I've answered this a lot. He said, let's change it up to a little elimination chamber besides yourself. Who would be your dream opponents? Boy, let's go with guys working right now. If I could do an elimination chamber right now in the WWE, well, geez, I'm going to pick a bunch of the top guys that I'm a fan of right now. I think both absurd when you hear the other guys, and I'm one of them included, but cool for me. I would go me, Punk. I would go Cody. I would go Gargano, because he's my boy. And I would go... going to go Drew McIntyre. And I'm going to go Rey Mysterio. Because Rey is, I don't know if I can keep up with Rey, but I would love to have a match with Rey Mysterio. So those would be my guys. That'd be an interesting elimination chamber, wouldn't it? Steve McGinnis says, if you were booking the 3 major promotions in the USA, who would you book at their world champion as their world champion from the current roster? There's what Steve McGinnis says. What's the third major? Nathan says, what's the third major promotion? Steve says snarky. Nathan says serious question. There's an argument back and forth between Nathan and Steve. I'm just going to assume that he means WWE, TNA, and AEW. Of course, that's in no particular order. I think right now I would keep Joe Hendry as the TNA champion. This is going to sound like cop-outs. If we're considering that we're going into WrestleMania, I think Cody's a great champion right now for WWE, but I feel like logic tells me that we're probably going to get Cena winning the championship. I don't know that for sure, but if you turn the guy heel after 20 years and then his first match as a heel he doesn't win, I feel like you're really screwing up his heel turn. I would book Cena to be the WWE champion because I think it works for his character right now, but also I think there's mainstream appeal to having John Cena the champion right now, especially considering that he's grown his brand as an actor and a person outside of wrestling. And then AEW champion. Who is the best case scenario for an AEW champion? Okay, so I think based on popularity, and I know they're in the tag division right now, technically, but I think a more well-known name and someone that I think the crowd would get behind because they genuinely seem to like him and would be someone who could credibly defeat Jon Moxley, I'm going to go Bobby Lashley. They love the Hurt Syndicate. I think making the Hurt Syndicate top guys who could win all the championships as baby faces, I think could be sick. So I would definitely go Bobby Lashley if I were booking AEW right now. Harold Pollock says, when you get the Caesars Little Caesars pretzel crust pizza, do you get it with cheese sauce or regular sauce? Come on, what do you think? I'm a monster? I get the cheese sauce. If you're getting a pretzel themed pizza and they have cheese sauce as an option, you get the freaking cheese sauce. It's weird with the regular sauce. I mean, it's fine because you still have the pretzel crust, which is salty and delicious, but you got to go cheese sauce. Jimmy Patton says, would you ever work for WWE? I feel like they made a sideshow attraction out of Zach Gallen. I disagree with that. I feel like they did exactly what they should have done with Zach. In fact, I feel like in 2025, they would not have booked Zach in the same way. I think the way that they booked him, which was somewhat controversial, like being mocked for being disabled and everything, like I think that's why I haven't got signed, because I think there is fear to do things like that, and I feel like that's what garners the most attention. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's like you know, wrestling it involves emotions, right? And when you have a unique character like Zach Allen or myself, I feel like you even without a physical disability, you know what it's like to be bullied. You've seen other people bullied. And whether you've experienced it, you did it and regret it, or you've seen someone with a physical or mental disability bullied, you know what that feels like. You know the feeling going in that person's mind or in your mind, whatever. It's a very real thing. And I think what they did in 2003, Vince cheating to beat him in arm wrestling contests, trying to make him join the Kiss My Ass Club, Zach overcoming all the odds with help from Angle and Brock to beat the Big Show with in a handicap match with the moonsault with one leg off the top rope. I think they did great business with Zach. And just imagine if Zach would have been in a better headspace and not on drugs, how much longer he could have lasted with the company. I do think that, given the uniqueness of Zach's story and where he is now, he's Hall of Fame worthy. Not because he had a particular Hall of Fame in-ring career for the WWE, but the story beyond wrestling. And I think that would make for a great ambassador for the company when you consider, hey, he was able to become a WWE superstar for 9 months. He went through a lot of personal demons, and look at him now. I think that says a lot about his character and how far he's come. Let's see here. David Cox says, someone once told me you don't have to give 100% every day, just 100% of what you have that day. Years later, that still sticks with me. That's good advice. Thank you for sharing that, David. That's very true. Sometimes we don't have the money to put the gas in the tank that we would like, right? But even if we're running on fumes, we got to push it, right? We got to push it. We got to make the most of it. But also we got to know when to rest. Sometimes giving 100% means taking that time to rest, relax, so that way when you are a little bit more fueled up, you can give it a go. You can give it your all. Jim Richardson says, if you could take the spot of any WrestleMania main eventer, who would it be? For instance, you'd take Savage's spot against Steamboat. Okay, well, so your question, Jim, I love you, but your question, it's a bit confusing because your example is not a WrestleMania main event. If you're Vince McMahon booking, you would probably say this was one of the main events of WrestleMania. That being said, am I like living vicariously through that person, or am I taking their place? Because I don't know if I could take anybody's place in the main event of WrestleMania and make it make sense, right? I think the only thing that I can make sense is probably the most recent WrestleMania main event coming up. Like, I'm not as over as him. And someone might argue that he's not that over or they're hating the story. I feel like in the story right now with Gunther, if you inserted me with my story, disability, overcoming odds, Gunther's character, I think you can make a good case for that being something you could do. I don't know. Like, that's just off the top of my head. But if I think back to, throughout WrestleMania history, I can't imagine replacing any of those guys. So there's a reason why they were in a spot that they were in. Let's see what else we got from social media. All right, Justin Cannon says, favorite film version of Batman. It's always going to be Michael Keaton. I don't know if you're fishing for a Val Kilmer because of his recent passing. I didn't mind Val Kilmer. I mean, you don't get any worse than George Clooney, right? But also you could argue that George Clooney had potential to be a good Batman considering the type of Bruce Wayne he portrayed. I think given the story and the situation and better Batmans before him is what made him such a bad Batman. But for me, it's always going to be Michael Keaton. Chris Quick says, underrated music artists these days. Boy, I don't know. I'm listening to a lot of pop punk. So I feel like nothing I listen to anybody else is really listening to. Yeah, I might have to come back to that one. I'm just going to say the guys who did last year's WrestleMania theme, Nothing More. The song was If It Doesn't Hurt. I think that's a really good song. I never really heard of them before WrestleMania, and I don't hear many people talking about them, so maybe that could be considered underrated. There's a pop-punk band that I like called Boys of Fall. I don't really hear people talking about them too much. I also often hear that my liking of music is not to other people's taste, so maybe I just like shitty music. I don't know. Let's see. Jason Amos says, what do you think of these pop culture musicians being introduced on wrestling shows every week? I don't mind it. I mean, I don't think it's any different than, any other type of celebrity being introduced back when we were growing up in the late 90s, 2000s, WWF, WCW. It's part of the business, right? You want to make wrestling seem like it appeals to more people outside the wrestling bubble. And I think that helps wrestling, and if it gets more eyes on wrestling, then I'm all for it. Peter Michael Young says, favorite 90s sitcom? That's probably going to be Full House. You can make an argument for Perfect Strangers as well. Family Matters, really anything in the TGIF lineup is going to qualify for me. Boy Meets World, was always a great one. There's a lot to choose from, but I always lean towards TGIF. Step by Step. Let's go. Steve McGinnis says, what are the top 3 John Carpenter movies? I mean, off the top of my head, it seems like you'd have to go, no particular order. You got to go Escape from New York and or Escape from LA. Halloween and They Live, right? I mean, if Roddy Piper wasn't in it, I would still say They Live, but maybe The Thing can mention as well. I think those are all pretty solid choices. Yeah. What do we got here? Will Carroll. Describe the perfect indie wrestling merch table. Well, I feel like you need a wide variety of merch, right? You got to have maybe, at the very least, you need shirts and 8x10s, okay? But if you had some stickers are always great. It's a great and cost-effective item that you can give away as like hey, here's a free item if you purchase a t-shirt, so you get people to make a big purchase and you get them a little item with it. Trading cards are very, very popular, and you can make a nice buck off of. Koozies are a nice accessory. Perhaps maybe some action figures for people. It's always nice when you can get a buddy of yourself to include in the table. You basically want your table to seem appealing for everybody. You want to have your things not marked as price per se, but at least have a listing of what you have on the table, or maybe an offer of like get a free item with a purchase of this much, or if you purchase this item, maybe a QR code that they can scan so they can pay you, because not a lot of people have cash. So yeah, I think that's kind of what a perfect merch table looks like in this day and age. We'll end it on this one. Brett Steinman says, if you can bring back Ernest to do one more movie, what would it be about? Well, boy, there's a script out there for there was a little bit of a script for a wrestling movie, and there were a couple wrestling references in Ernest movies. I think that could have been very interesting. Just having Ernest as a terrible wrestler would have been great. I mean, I think one of the more underrated Ernest movies was the direct-to-video one, Ernest Slam Dunk Ernest, rather, and I think that was very good. It's hard for me to think of, gosh, what scenario would I want to... I want to see something where Ernest goes social media, where maybe some sort of escapade where he's spending a lot of time on Facebook or something that was like Facebook, but they don't call it Facebook because it's a movie, and he's believing the fake news of the internet. I don't have it all fleshed out, but there's some sort of fake news, social media Ernest joke there. But if nothing else, there is a Ernest comic Kickstarter that I actually contributed to. I don't know if you could still buy into the campaign, but it's a unfinished Ernest script that they went in depth on. It's called Ernest and the Dreamstone, and I invested heavily into this comic, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I believe it comes out sometime at the end of this year, and I've never invested in a lot of Kickstarters, but this was one of them because Ernest is one of my all-time favorite characters. If you know anything about me, you know that this past year, Johnny Gargano got me an Ernest signed photo along with a bunch of old Ernest merchandise catalogs and newsletters, and it was one of the best gifts I ever got. It's tremendous stuff. So, yeah, that's where I'm at, and that's what I think, and that's it. That's it for this episode of Iron on Wrestling. If you can't get enough of what we're doing here, then you got to go over to Patreon. Patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling, where you get a bonus episode this week. Who knows how many other bonus episodes I'm going to drop because I'm bored, but we're at the least going to cover Raw and some of the more recent wrestling news. We're going to preview WrestleMania as it looks thus far. And buttload of podcasts going back to 2019 over on Patreon. Patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling. $3 get you in the door. $5 get you video. $9 get you live chats with me. $25 and up gets you involved in getting packages every quarter. We're sending out next out in June, $29 and up. You can pay to be in the studio with me. Do you really want to do that right now where I have 2 bum arms? I don't know. It could be good company, but it's something you could do. Patreon.com/Iron Wrestling. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you download podcasts so you get alerted as soon as it drops. Subscribe to our YouTube where we're dropping content all the time. That's just at Iron on Wrestling. You can find me on social media. I am at Gregory Iron on Twitter, but I don't do much there. So go find me on Instagram at Gregory_Iron, Facebook.com/The Handicapped Hero. If you'd like to go follow my, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, escapades. There we go. Follow my escapades over there. You can DM me for pro wrestling seminars at some point, motivational speaking at some point when I'm out of my sling. Could work something out. Who knows? My wrestling career itself is up in the air. Pro Wrestling Tees. If you want to buy a t-shirt, Pro Wrestling Tees/Gregory Iron. Buy my shirts, Aaron shirts, Iron on Wrestling shirts, Cameo if you would like a shout out. And of course, if you'd like to donate to the GoFundMe, it is something you can find on my social media pages. It's on my Instagram bio. If you can contribute, great. If not, just sharing it helps me survive during this time where I cannot do any physical labor or wrestling work. So thank you very much. Appreciate you listening to the show. And hey, until next week, I'm going to give you a nice, wet, dreamy kiss. Goodbye.